Welcome. Welcome to my series on the heroine's journey. I'm Susanna Liller, and it's time to find your happiness. We have been going through the steps of the heroine's journey on our video series. And today, this one is about being at the end of the road, the end of the journey. What happens then? So you answered a call, you left and crossed the threshold and got on the road of adventure. Good things happened, bad things happened. People helped you, people didn't help you. You might have gotten in the belly of the whale, you might have met a dragon, but you kept going, heroine, one step after another. And now here you are at the other end, which we call the return threshold. So what happens here? What do we do? Well, we note that we completed our mission, meaning we did something. We responded to a call. So just to go to story examples, think about Dorothy. Dorothy is taken to Oz. She has all those adventures. Good things happened, bad things happened. And she learned a lot on the way. She became courageous and very independent. And she comes back to Kansas, to where it all began. And there she is in her bedroom with Auntie Em and the farmhands, and saying there's no place like home, and Toto's there too. But she's very changed. She's not the same person who left. And if you believe it was a dream, then really she never left to begin with, but a lot has happened that has changed her. And then think about Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit. So he gets called by Gandalf knocking on his door, his beautiful green door that never had a scratch on it until Gandalf knocked with his cane. And he goes on his journey with the ring and to fight the dragon, Smog, in his mountain cave. And he returns to the Shire, where it all began, to his house with the green door. And to his horror, everybody's giving away his furniture. They're having a yard sale. They think he's expired and not coming back. And so he has to deal with that, but eventually he settles back in. And people note that he has changed, that he just isn't quite the same as he's writing poetry, which he never did before. So then there's me, and I've talked to you about different journeys that I've been on. And the way it looks, so what we talk about in journey language, we say that the heroine finishes her journey and then returns to her village where it began. So village, kind of community, and there shares her gifts and shares what she learned on the journey. And for me, so if I talk about leaving the large manufacturing company, the big corporation that I was in, and going out on my own, well, the journey was about getting the call to leave and then doing the act of leaving, which I have described to you, was hard for me, was a big leap. But in effect, I returned. I didn't really go anywhere. I was still in my own home, but I wasn't going to the same place for my job, but I was doing the same kind of work, working with organizations and helping them in conflict and strategic planning. So it didn't really noticeably look that different, except had I changed because of what I went through? Absolutely. And the same thing happened when I left my consulting company that I was part of for 8 years. Pretty much left doing the same kind of work, but I wasn't traveling an hour to go to my office every day in Portland. It looked different, but it really was the same work. But had I changed? Absolutely. So what about you, heroine? Think about how you were when you were in a certain journey at the beginning, you were in your comfort zone and you got the call to make a change. Remember, that can come from within you, or it can happen from the outside, and you can be pushed and you're on your journey and all the things that happen. And now you're at the end, or think about when you were ending a journey and what that looked like, what the return threshold looked like for you. And noting that maybe you're still in the same place. Maybe you've moved from one home to another, but basically you're in the same state, the same city, the same neighborhood even, but lots have changed, and mostly you have changed because of what you went through while you were on the journey. And you know, people can refuse the return. And that's actually, Joseph Campbell has a step called refusal of the return. And I was thinking about the pandemic and how the pandemic sent people on a journey, kicking them out of their current careers or jobs because either their business shut down or they had to shut their business down. And now we're starting on year 3, but for 2 years, several people have been on a journey in their careers. And some have decided, I'm not going back to what I was doing before. So they are assessing and reviewing what they really want and not returning. They're not ready. They're creating. They're thinking of something new. So there's a case where there was an external something that pushed people on a journey, myself included, which is why I developed my online course, Your Epic Journey of Transformation, because I had to put things online. I wasn't going out doing retreats and workshops anymore. So it can happen in any way, but there is this point in time when that particular change in your life is complete. You've done it. You made the action to do what it was you were called to do. And why bother to even note it? Well, why bother is it's good to assess. It's good to look at what you actually did and how you grew from it. And so this is when we also take into account what gifts did we get for ourselves from this particular journey. And you know, in story, we talk about actual material gifts. And for you, they could be material too, from whatever your journey was. Maybe it's a better job with more money that you have, or a better house if you left one and moved to another. But in story, we talk about Jason and the golden fleece. He went out to get that, or whatever the elixir might be for a particular character. But for real life heroines like you, like me, so often it's all about the inner gifts: increased confidence and self-esteem, belief in yourself, belief in what you can do, belief in your value. And then you look at it and you say, wow, I did that. And sometimes you have to give yourself some space and objectivity, because when you're still very close to the journey and just completing it, you don't see everything you've gained. But when you do, then you're noting, wow, look at what I did. Look at the courage and strength and persistence I had, the wisdom I had to do what I did. And so it's important to take stock and to assess, because you will be getting another call and going on another journey, because we continue to develop and evolve. And this is how it happens. And remember, it's a spiral. It looks on my map, it's very two-dimensional, but it really goes up and up. So after a journey, you're a little bit higher than where you started. And then you just keep evolving. which is why it's so important to answer the call. So you consider your gifts received, and you look at what you've done and you assess it. And what did I learn from this? What was most important about this particular journey? And when you think about those two examples that I gave you from stories about Dorothy and about Bilbo, yes, they did in their stories, it was a big adventure and there were a lot of physical things involved. But mostly it was when they began, which is the same for us, they appeared to be very ordinary. Dorothy in Kansas, Bilbo Baggins, regular old Hobbit who never went on adventures, and you thinking that you're ordinary. And then the adventure, the journey, builds you into really what was inside of you all along. So we say transformation because it does transform you. It does change you. But I would say to you that really all of that is in you from day one. It's part of your purpose and your destiny. I'm always talking about you're the acorn and that tree is in you. And every time you get a call, it's going to go where it was always meant to go, grow a limb here, grow a limb there. The tree grows into a mighty oak. So it's all inside, just needing to come out. And it's the adventure, responding to your call, that brings it out in you, as hard as it might be. And it can be very hard. So I think about another journey of mine was going ahead and getting divorced in my first marriage. Was very afraid, thinking I couldn't do it. And that was an example of me leaving that marriage and moving one street up. My house, my new house apartment, was the street right above my old house. So I returned to my village, quote unquote, still the same neighborhood, still the same community. I had moved to a different house, but boy, inside was I changed. A whole different scenario. So the return. And what about people who refuse to return? They're out on their journey and they're getting the message, maybe it's time to end the journey, and they don't want to end it. Now, why would that be? And I would suggest to you that maybe it's just not finished. More things still have to happen. And they would know that from within. They're just not ready to go back. And of course, there's the ancient hero Odysseus, who continued for 10 years after he fought in the Trojan War to have adventure after adventure until he was ready to go back to his wife and his son. So that's a supreme, extreme example of refusal of the return. Actually, it wasn't his fault. It was the whole gods fighting and wanting to punish him. And so that's how they explained it in those days. So what's going to happen next? Then what? So we're done. Well, yes, you're going to get another call, but also there's one more step that's noted at the end, and it's called freedom to live. And we're going to talk about that in the next video, what freedom to live means. So I hope you will join me in that. And of course, I thank you for staying with me on this video and listening to what the return is all about. And of course, I always invite you to go to my website, susannaliller.com, and you'll find there the course that I developed based on all of this work that I've done called Your Epic Journey of Transformation. And so it helps you to see this really in a very close-up way as far as how the journey has affected your life and how that makes a difference to how you feel about yourself being a heroine, which of course you are. So always remember, you are a heroine, and I'll see you the next time.